She laughed before the punchline. Except the punchline was me. I was still chewing a piece of undercooked steak when I heard it. Her voice, unmistakable, bright, animated, just loud enough to cut through the buzz of corporate small talk. Ellis? Oh, he plays with broken radios and calls it a business. Laughter followed. The polite kind. The kind people do at office parties to prove they're part of the pack. They didn't even know what they were laughing at. They didn't need to. June set the tone, and the room followed. I stopped chewing. My throat was dry. My fingers sticky from the glass of complimentary red wine I didn't want. I turned, slow, just in time to see her wave her hand like she was brushing me off in spirit. She's joking, I told myself. She's just nervous. Making conversation. But she wasn't. Because then came the second blow. From a man in a navy suit with slicked back hair and an award already in his hand. Hey, maybe he can fix the coffee machine on the third floor. It's been stuck in 1995 too. More laughter. I stared at my plate. My tie suddenly felt like a leash. I couldn't move. Couldn't swallow. Couldn't breathe through the heat crawling up the back of my neck. I wasn't even sitting at their table. I wasn't invited to. I was 2 tables back. Where the plus ones go. Out of frame. Out of mind. And that was the moment I knew. I wasn't her partner. I was a prop. Something she dusted off to make her seem grounded. Something safe to mock once the spotlight found her. They kept laughing. And me? I quietly reached into my coat pocket, pulled out the velvet box with the engagement ring I'd gotten cleaned just for tonight, and slid it under a half-empty dessert plate. No speech. No scene. Not yet. But the night was far from over. Because soon, I'd give them something else to laugh about. And she'd never forget the sound. I didn't stand up right away. I just sat there, letting the muffled music and laughter wash over me like static. The velvet ring box was still under the dessert plate, untouched, like a secret nobody knew existed. My name hadn't been mentioned again. After the laughs died down, June went back to charming her boss, sipping her wine like nothing had happened. Her back was turned to me the entire time. She never looked back. That detail stuck with me, because she knew I was there. She knew I'd heard it. And the fact that she never even checked, that said everything. I guess that's what really broke me. Not the joke, not even the fake laughs, but the quiet, cold way she let it hang in the air like I didn't matter. Like I was some embarrassing chapter she couldn't wait to rewrite. I didn't storm out. I didn't cry. I did what I always do when I feel small. I got quiet. I got invisible. I sat there, ignored, like the outdated tech I rebuild for a living. Until I noticed something strange, the slideshow on the stage. They were honoring employees, highlighting their achievements, year-end photos, promotions, charity events. Each slide had a little blurb underneath. Exceeded sales expectations, led successful onboarding for 17 hires, organized leadership retreat in Aspen. It was all very shiny. And then June's face appeared. There she was in her crisp gray blazer, arms folded like a movie poster. The slide read, promoted to regional HR director, engaged to a creative entrepreneur. A creative entrepreneur. That was how she described me on the bio she wrote for the slide. The same woman who, less than an hour ago, told her coworkers I played with broken radios. That's when something inside me clicked. She wanted to have it both ways. Wanted to flaunt the quirky fiancé for aesthetics, but mock the real person behind closed doors. Use me when it was convenient, discard me when it wasn't. Dress me up in her narrative, then unzip it when it clashed with the brand she sold at work. I stood up. I didn't know what I was going to do, not yet. But I knew I couldn't sit there any longer and let myself disappear into the tablecloth. Not again. Not tonight. So I started walking, past the rows of chairs, past the servers with champagne trays, past the wall of mirrored glass that showed me just how out of place I looked in that rented suit. I wasn't going toward her. Not yet. I had one stop to make first. Because if this night was going to be remembered, I needed to make sure no one forgot who I was before she rewrote the story. And I knew exactly where to start. I walked straight into the coat room, which, for the record, was just a side hallway with racks and a sad little security camera blinking like it was tired of watching rich people's jackets. I wasn't here for my coat. Not yet. I just needed somewhere quiet. Somewhere to think without the glitter of chandeliers and the sound of people pretending they liked each other for bonuses and job security. I sat down on a bench by the fire exit and opened my phone. I scrolled through my photos, pictures of June and me. Us on a hike she hated but smiled through. Us in the shop, her pretending to twist dials like she was actually interested in AM frequency. A blurry photo of the night, I played her the first track I ever finished. She cried then. Said it made her feel like she was inside someone's memory. That version of her was gone. Or maybe she'd never been real. My thumb hovered over the gallery as a memory flashed. Last month, June's mom asked if we'd picked a wedding song yet. June looked at me and said, "We'll probably go with something safe. Something people actually recognize." She laughed. I laughed too. But it stung even then. She used to say my music sounded like the future remembering the past. That night, she said it sounded like elevator noise. I stared at her picture now, wondering when exactly I'd become a liability instead of a partner. And then the coat room door swung open. It was one of her co-workers. A woman, mid-30s, blonde bob haircut, sharp black dress, lanyard badge still around her neck like she hadn't even bothered to take it off. She looked surprised to see me there. I looked away, embarrassed. But she didn't leave. "Ellis, right?" I nodded. "I liked the track you posted last week. The one with the train sounds under the piano loop. You called it Static Memory. That was yours, right?" I blinked. "Yeah. Wait, how did you?" "I follow your SoundCloud. June posted it once on her story like a year ago. It stuck with me." I didn't know what to say. For a second, I thought she was messing with me. But she wasn't. Her face was soft, not mocking. She sat across from me on the bench like we were old friends. "You know," she said after a pause, "people laugh at things they don't understand. That doesn't mean it's worthless. It just means they're scared to admit it might be meaningful." I swallowed hard. "You heard what she said out there?" She hesitated. "Everyone did. But I also saw your face. And I think you should say something. Not for her. For you." She stood up, gave me a nod, and walked out like she hadn't just flipped the air in my lungs. I stayed there another minute. Then I reached into my coat pocket. Not for the ring. For my phone. I opened a draft message. Not to June. To myself. And I started writing what I wanted to say, word for word. No filters. No apologies. Because this time, I wasn't going to let it slide. This time, I was going to be seen. And when I was ready, I stepped back into that ballroom. Not as the joke. Not as the phase. As the man who finally spoke. When I stepped back into that ballroom, it didn't feel like I was walking into a party anymore. It felt like a stage. And I wasn't just another guest. I was the ghost in the machine they thought had powered down. The music had changed to something jazzy and forgettable. The speeches had wrapped up. People were looser now, drunker, leaning in close to gossip and nibble on desserts shaped like tiny corporate logos. But my eyes found June instantly. She was standing near the stage, sipping from a half-empty flute of champagne, laughing with her boss, Mr. Slickback Navy suit from earlier. Her laugh had a different tone now. Sharper. Meaner. It was the kind of laugh you hear from people who know they're being watched and like it. I didn't go to her. Not yet. I walked to the stage. It wasn't even locked. Just a few stairs, a microphone, and a projector still cycling through the highlight reels of smiling employees posing with oversized checks and community service awards. No one noticed me at first. Not until the feedback hit. That sharp screech of a mic not meant to be touched by anyone off script. Heads turned. I didn't flinch. "Hey," I said. My voice came out smaller than I'd imagined, but clear. Sharp enough to slice through the scattered chatter and clinking glass. More faces turned. I wasn't scheduled to speak, but I think I need to. I spotted June now, frozen in place, her glass midair. Her smile collapsed faster than a house of cards in a breeze. I came here tonight thinking I was supporting the woman I love. I wore the suit. I smiled at strangers. I even stayed quiet when I became the joke in a room full of people who don't know me, don't care to, and probably couldn't tell the difference between a dial tone and a dial up. Some chuckles. Nervous ones. But let me give you something real. I don't fix radios. I resurrect them. I don't make spooky little songs. I make audio maps of time. Pieces of memory stitched together from static, hiss, and fragments of forgotten sound. And while that may not get me a corner office or a retreat in Aspen, it's mine. I built it. And I believe she stood beside me when I did. The room was silent now. I scanned their faces, stopping at hers. She called it a phase. But here's what she didn't tell you. When her father got sick and she was falling apart, I recorded his old voicemails. Those clipped little "hey, bug, it's dad" messages. And I looped them under piano and reverb. And I played them for her. She cried in my arms for an hour. Called it a gift. said it made her feel like he was right there. More faces turned toward her now. She looked cornered, like someone had pulled the floor out from beneath her heels. She said she believed in me, said I was different. But tonight, when it mattered, when she had the chance to defend the man she chose to marry, she chose to perform instead. I paused, then reached into my coat pocket. I didn't pull out the ring. I pulled out my phone, and I played that voicemail mix, the one I made for her. It echoed through the speakers, her father's voice, raw and human, spliced gently with soft static and fading keys. No one said a word. No one could. I let it play. 30 full seconds. Then I clicked it off. Maybe this isn't the place for something real. Maybe it never was. I walked down from the stage, past the stairs, past the managers and assistants and interns who suddenly weren't so sure this was the kind of party they wanted to be at, past June, who stood there, shell-shocked, lips parted, but with nothing, absolutely nothing, to say. I didn't look back. Not once. Because for the first time in 3 years, I was finally moving forward. I was halfway across the parking lot when I heard the frantic click of heels behind me. I didn't slow down. The air was sharp and cold, but my skin was burning. My hands shook, not from fear, but from adrenaline that had nowhere left to go. My body was catching up to what I'd just done, and I knew, deep down, I could never undo it. Ellis, her voice cracked as she called my name. Wait, please. I stopped, only because I wanted to hear what lie she'd come up with first. I turned slowly. She was hugging her coat around her, hair falling out of place, the glamorous image she'd constructed all night, now unraveling thread by thread. You ambushed me, she said breathlessly. What was that? I let out a laugh. Not a loud one. Just a small, bitter sound. That was the truth. You've been performing for months, June. Tonight, I just gave you a better stage. You humiliated me in front of my boss, she hissed. In front of everyone. You made me look. Like what? I cut her off. Like someone who mocks the person they claim to love? Like someone who'd rather fit in with strangers than stand beside their partner? She flinched. Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked around, maybe hoping no one was watching, but I didn't care anymore. Let the valet hear. Let the cameras record. I wasn't hiding anymore. I never said you weren't talented, she muttered, her voice smaller now. You know I respect what you do. Do I? I asked. Because the last time you showed it was before your promotion. Before the dinner parties. Before your friends started measuring success in square footage and car leases. You used to listen, June. You used to ask questions. Now you smile at me in private and laugh at me in public. It was a joke, she said. I was nervous. It just slipped out. No, I said quietly. You were proud. You wanted to seem smarter, cooler, more normal. And for that, you threw me under the bus. She took a step forward. I didn't mean to hurt you. But you did, I said. And not just tonight. You've been doing it slowly, carefully, in small enough doses that I started to believe I deserved it. That maybe I was some embarrassing detour in your life. But I'm not. She reached out, maybe to touch my hand, maybe to pull me back into that fragile fantasy. I stepped away. I brought the ring tonight, I said. I was going to propose properly. On the balcony. After your speech. Thought it would be romantic. Thought you'd like that. She gasped slightly. Her hand went to her mouth. Ellis. But I watched you instead, I said. Watched the way you changed when you thought I wasn't paying attention. And I realized something. Love isn't just what you say when we're alone. It's how you carry someone when the room is watching. You dropped me tonight. Hard. For the first time, she didn't have a comeback. And for the first time, I didn't need one. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the ring box. She gasped again, maybe thinking I was about to change my mind. I opened it, then gently set it on the hood of her car. I hope you find someone who fits into your slideshow better, I said. But it's not going to be me. And with that, I walked into the night, without a speech, without an audience, and for the first time, without her shadow over my shoulder. But the story wasn't over. Not yet. I didn't go home that night. Not to our apartment, anyway. I didn't want to see the couch she picked out or the stack of wedding brochures on the dining table or the framed photo of us from last summer that she made me retake 5 times because my smile looked too tired. Instead, I drove to the workshop. My safe place. A rented storage unit behind an old bookstore that smelled like damp wood and copper coils. That place had seen every version of me. Frustrated, inspired, sleep-deprived, hopeful. It never judged. It never laughed. I unlocked the door and let the familiar buzz of fluorescent lighting wash over me. Shelves lined with half-dismantled cassette decks, a row of radios humming softly, like old friends whispering in their sleep. I exhaled for the first time in hours. I sat at my workbench and just stared at the chaos. Tools scattered, scraps of circuit board, an old mug with dried coffee crusted on the inside rim. Everything exactly where I left it. Except for one thing. An envelope. Plain, white sealed, propped against my soldering iron like it had been placed there with care. At first, I thought I was imagining it. But it had my name written on the front in familiar, slightly slanted handwriting. June's. I hesitated before touching it. Part of me thought it would explode, or worse, pull me right back into the orbit I'd just escaped. But curiosity overpowered caution. I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No greeting, no signature. Just one paragraph. If you ever decide to come back, I'll be waiting. Not because I want you to forget what I did tonight, but because I hope you won't. Because maybe if you remember it clearly, you'll understand how much I need to unlearn. I'm sorry, Ellis, for everything I buried under the performance. I read it twice. It wasn't an apology. Not really. It was a breadcrumb. A test. A trap. She was always good at that. Knowing exactly what to say to sound vulnerable without giving up control. There was no mention of what she did. No accountability. Just a soft echo of guilt dressed up as confession. I folded the letter and slid it back into the envelope. Then I tucked it into a drawer and shut it hard enough to rattle the radio dials on the wall. I didn't need breadcrumbs. I needed boundaries. And yet, as I sat back and stared at the ceiling, I realized something even worse than her letter. A small, dark part of me missed her. Not the woman from the ballroom. Not the polished executive with her networking charm and sharp tongue. But the one who used to hum quietly while I soldered wires. The one who curled up in my hoodie and said my music made her feel like she was dreaming in someone else's memories. That version of her had felt real. And if I was being honest, brutally honest, I missed being loved by someone, even if it had been a carefully edited version of love. I shook the thought from my head and reached for my headphones. If I couldn't sleep, I could at least create. That was still mine. That was still safe. But before I could press play on my latest track, my phone buzzed. A new email. Subject line. Tonight's incident. Immediate follow-up required. It was from her boss, and it was sent to both of us. My chest tightened. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I stared at the subject line for a full minute before opening the email. My heart wasn't just racing, it was flinching. Like it knew something bad was coming, but didn't know where from. The kind of dread you get before a car crash, when everything is still quiet and controlled, but you know it's already too late to stop what's about to happen. The message was short, cold, legal in tone. To Ellis Granger and June Ward. Following the disruption at last night's year-end gala, we will be conducting an internal review to address concerns raised by multiple employees and leadership present at the event. Ms. Ward, you are requested to attend a formal meeting Monday morning at 9 a.m. with HR and regional executive oversight. Mr. Granger, you are not required to attend. However, any further contact with company staff or leadership will be considered a breach of professional boundaries and will result in formal action. Regards, Bryant C. Henderson, Executive Director, Midwestern Region. Helix Group Incorporated. That last line echoed in my head. Any further contact will be considered a breach. They made it sound like I'd stormed in swinging fists or screamed obscenities. Like I'd set fire to the dessert table or sabotaged the projector. Not just spoken. I hadn't even named names. June must have told them I was a threat, a liability, or maybe they just needed someone to blame so they could keep their image intact. The golden employee and her unhinged ex-artist fiancé? Easy narrative. Neat little file. I set the phone down and leaned back in my chair. And I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so predictable. That entire company ran on appearances. Damage control was more important than truth. The speeches, the awards, the wine, it was all frosting on a cake full of rot. Of course they saw me as the problem. I broke the illusion. I dared to be real. But what caught me off guard wasn't the email. It was what came next. Not 30 minutes later, a second message came through. This one from June. No subject, just her name. The body was a single sentence. They're threatening to suspend me unless I publicly clarify that you were never invited to speak. I stared at those words, reading them again and again. She didn't say they're wrong. She didn't say, I told them the truth. Just what they want. And suddenly I realized what this was really about. She wasn't scared of losing me. She was scared of losing her job. I replied without thinking. Tell them the truth, June. Or tell them whatever keeps your chair warm. Either way, I'm done being your shield. I hit send. Then I turned off my phone. Let them spin their little story. Let them patch the PR holes and pretend I never existed. I wasn't part of their world, and I never wanted to be. But the part that made me sick to my stomach was how easily she slipped back into it. How quickly she began negotiating her reality to save face. She was supposed to be different. And yet, there she was, editing the narrative again. I stood up and pulled the ring box out from the drawer. Opened it. Still there. Still beautiful. Still hollow. Without thinking, I walked out to the alley behind the bookstore. There was a dumpster. I didn't throw it in. That would have felt dramatic, performative, like something people do in movies to symbolize moving on. Instead, I set it on top of the lid. Quietly. No ceremony. Someone else would find it eventually. Maybe someone who thought it meant something. And then I went back inside. Not because I was ready to move on, but because I had one more track to finish. And this time, it was going to say everything I didn't. I stayed in the workshop all weekend. Barely slept. Barely ate. Just poured myself into the one place that still made sense. The tangled chaos of wires and knobs and blinking LEDs. There was something comforting about broken things. They didn't lie. They didn't pretend. They just were. Sunday night, I powered up the old rig. My Frankenstein machine cobbled from cassette decks, filters, a reel-to-reel tape, and a refurbished Soviet mic I'd found in a pawn shop. I recorded the hum of silence first. The sound of an empty room with just enough voltage to crackle. Then I looped in pieces of old voicemails. My late grandmother reading off a recipe. A childhood friend laughing about a prank. Even one clip of myself from 2 years ago, leaving a hopeful message on June's birthday. I layered piano over it. Not polished, not perfect, just raw chords. Honest. Then I added static. Not to hide the imperfections, but to highlight them. Because real love, real pain, real growth, they don't sound clean. They sound like trying. The track took 11 hours. When it was done, I named it. For the version of me you forgot. I didn't upload it under my artist handle. I sent it to one person. June. No message. No caption. Just the file. Closure. Not a cry for attention. Then I unplugged the speakers, shut down the workstation, and stepped out into the early morning air. The sky was washed in pale gold. Quiet. Unbothered. I breathed deep. For the first time in what felt like years, I didn't feel like I owed the world a version of myself that it could understand. I was allowed to just be. By Tuesday, I'd booked a booth at a small local art and sound showcase. Nothing fancy. Just folding tables and a rented PA system. But it was mine. And when I played the track for the tiny crowd, something strange happened. People cried. A teenager asked if she could use the song in a short film about her dad. An older man handed me a business card and said, This isn't background music. It's memory. Someone saw me. Not through June's lens. Not through a company slideshow. Not through filtered judgment or snide jokes. Just me. Raw. Flawed. Real. And I smiled. Not the forced kind. The deep kind. The kind that rises up from your chest when you realize you're no longer performing for anyone. You're just living. So no, I didn't get the ring back. No, I didn't deliver a romantic twist or get some perfect movie ending. But I walked away with something better. Myself. Unedited. Unapologetic. And finally, after everything, finally enough.